Welcome back to Women in Horror. Today we are looking at Naomie Harris, who, long before she shot James Bond, played Selena in one of my all-time favourite films, 28 Days Later. There is little point in eulogising about the film itself, as its quality is high. However, there is a lot to say about a character who has no in-depth backstory, but who emphasises that she has been through hell with an acting masterclass. Let's start at the beginning. In a film which has more poignancy in 2020, we start in a lab of monkeys where they are testing a zoonotic disease called rage. Animal rights activists aren't happy about the abuse of these lovely animals, so, breaking in with the best of anarchic intentions, they accidentally let loose a plague which could wipe out the human race. And sure as sugar, we cut to 28 days later, and said plague has ravaged the country and caused the complete collapse of society. It's here that we meet Jim, a bicycle courier who's had an accident and has been lying in bed for about 28 days or so, I guess, and is seemingly the last person left in London. After covering up his decency, Jim heads out in search of some product placement. Damn, that makes me want a Coke right now. Before stumbling across a deserted London until he reaches a church of infected who chase him, Jim is saved by two mysterious figures who, after telling him a terrible joke about a lion, tell him what has been happening over the past, 28 days or so. It's here that Harris starts her film-stealing performance as she details how the virus was in the blood and details the collapse of the country, the dissipation of society and reports of infection now in France. Selena doesn't get a whole lot of detail about her own past. There's no origin story or flashback, and that's because she doesn't need one. Her closed, non-verbal communication reeking of someone who has been to hell and back and is surviving on something beyond hope. She's pessimistic, caustic, angry, and, most of all, caught between giving up and pushing on, which is a battle she's losing every day. She doesn't say much as the script is tight and formed and focuses on the crucial information the viewer needs, and we fill in the rest of the gaps. Jim takes Selena and lion joke Mark back to his house where they shack up for the night. Jim remains hopeful that something is still out there while Selena wants to push on and continues to fret for their safety. After Jim digs out some home movies and almost gets killed by the infected, Selena kills Mark in a truly devastating display of aggression because she feels in instinct, in a heartbeat, that he has been bitten and he will turn on them. Her ruthlessness compounds the blanks the audience are filling in about her history, and, as she cuts Mark to pieces with her machete, swings that would have Jason Voorhees taking notes, she explains that she just knew. She's seen this before, and we are already forming an affinity with her. The dichotomy of Jim's hope and Selena's pessimism are the perfect character arcs throughout the film and create a dynamic which, when we get to the ending Danny Boyle hated, is the perfect crescendo to their opposite parallels and gratuitous journey. After meeting Brendan Gleeson and his daughter, whilst again running from the affected, there is at last hope. A radio broadcast from Doctor Who telling everyone there's an answer to infection. The group set off, Selena already stating there is no answer, and their journey is warming, terrifying, and then ultimately heartbreaking as Selena's worst fears are revealed to be true, and Doctor Who has nothing but a gang of sexually frustrated soldiers who are one day away from killing themselves unless they have women. Harris shines in this journey and, although the film is told from Jim's perspective, she is the voice for our pessimism. Like Rick Grimes' pessimism degenerates in The Walking Dead, yes, I know 28 Days Later isn't technically a zombie film, it's a very similar journey of guardedness, anger, fear. Take for example in season 4 when Rick approaches Terminus. He already knows there's no answer, but this last iota of hope drives him on, and as they approach they go with reservations, scouting missions, and they go in ready to catch them out because they do not believe what will be behind those doors is going to be benign. Selena knows this broadcast is wrong, and, whilst we cling to Jim's optimism, the viewer knows that the inner Selena is right and there are dangers ahead. However, before we get to all that, we get some lovely scenes in an abandoned store and then round a campfire where Selena warms for the first time and she smiles and almost dares to believe that their ragtag group of strays might have hope. Harris changes her entire body language. She smiles and starts enjoying herself after being the group's constant nagging voice throughout whatever hope Jim and Frank try to muster. Anyway, to make a long story less long, they arrive at the base and we can see straight away what is going on and what danger they are in. Sitting in the jeep, the camera is from Selena's angle and we can see leering men bearing down on her. Now Harris plays vulnerable and, upon being taunted by the soldiers and threatened with sexual chauvinism, she knows what's happening as Doctor Who delivers his chilling line, "Slow down," to the men who finally have what they need to survive. It's a brilliant microcosm of the end of the world, and as Jim realises what is happening and our hearts break as Selena has to drug Hannah so she won't remember being repeatedly gang raped, the film pushes us into its most climactic act of tension. Then comes Selena's vulnerability and power as she tries but fails to stand up to the men. Being assaulted and held at gunpoint, Selena is saved by Jim and, in a wonderful moment which shows her character has developed, she waits that heartbeat and doesn't kill Jim like she killed Mark, despite him looking like a fully infected with coronavirus. I mean rage, sorry. 2020 is a complete shit show. Jim's faith in the world and people has paid off, and Selena has changed, and as they finally escape the collapsing world the soldiers have lied themselves within, she screams with the others as they break free and, in the cinema ending at least, save Jim who's been shot. By the end of the film, her character has found there is hope, love, and, as the three of them are now existing in isolation of a country cottage, the final scenes of Selena smiling as the plane finds them are the direct opposite of what we saw at the start. It's a masterclass of acting in body language and adaptation to different scenarios as Selena goes through her first act of character, the second act of hope, and then the third act where all hope is lost, but then they fight their way to freedom and finally reach the sanctuary they have sought right from the start. Although 28 Days Later has many interesting characters, I think Harris steals the film as she's the one who runs the gamut of emotions and trauma that we believe and connect with. We feel her vulnerability. Also, although Jim saves her, this isn't about the fact she needs a man to rescue her. She's not a damsel. It's about Jim convincing her to wait that heartbeat because there's something in the world to hope for, and it's a beautiful moment amid a scene of bloodshed. Anyway, spot 3 in my Hall of Fame goes to Naomie Harris, and brilliantly well deserved. She's a fantastic actress, and 28 Days Later benefits from her character arc of hopelessness, psychologically bruised survivor, to triumphant survivor of a living hell on earth. I'm taking a break from Women in Horror right now for a little bit to focus on some other videos, but when we return to the 4th recipient of this great honour, we'll look at Rachel Nichols in P2. So, until then, or whenever that will be, I'll catch you later.